At this time, we'll have Dr. Bob Holmes will present some information on CORE, Champions of Raleigh Education Foundation. And congratulations, Dr. Holmes, on your award.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pass those down.
You bet.
Thank you, Keith. I am Bob Holmes. I'm the president of this year's group of CORE, which is Champions of Raleigh Education. That's the name we go by. It's really the Raleigh Public Schools Foundation. We have a presentation here, so as soon as we get the slides up. I don't know if that's the first one, is it? Okay. Oh, it is. Okay. So anyway, basically our main theme is enriching the lives of the Raleigh Public School children through the generosity of the community. What you have in front of you is something our group has put together. Jenny Rabineau is instrumental in part of this development, but that's the brochure we hand out. Now that's our new 2015-2016 brochure. We'll go to the next slide. You have a packet in your handouts, these slides. This is our mission statement. Basically, we want to try to come in and support the school system in areas where the tax-supported or the tax base can't fund, and we come in with enrichment funds to try to help things along. Next slide, please. We also have a large, I won't call it an endowment, but we have a amount of funds that we administer and oversee that are part of scholarships that have been gifts or bequests from various members of the community over the years. This is a long-standing thing. Also, some of these are not only just scholarships, but they're various programs, and we'll get into that a little bit in more detail here in your slide packet. Next slide, please. A little bit of the history. 1991 was established. Kent King was the superintendent at that time, and a number of others put this together. It's been a long-standing group and had a great volunteer base to keep it moving along. It is 100% volunteer. We rely on community and corporate donations and memberships to establish that financial base and to sustain it through time. 1994, we began operating the Raleigh License Fee Office. And in 2014, we lost the bidding competition for that. And so that was a chunk of income to the program through time. It had been diminishing through time as well, so it wasn't quite as good financially for CORE as it had been in the past. It was salary costs, requirements from the state in terms of the equipment we had to provide for security and things like that. Those drove up the costs. And so even though we lost that, it wasn't as big an impact as it had been in years past, as we were having some dwindling resources there. So we've had to kind of scramble a little bit. Thankfully, we have had some makeup in those funds by certain corporate partners, and we've also had some increase in our individual memberships. We still haven't plugged that gap, but we're working on it steadily. Next slide, please. This is just a picture of our board of directors and some ex-FICCIO members of that group. I think this is everybody. I searched around and tried to find a picture of all of us, but the list is on that brochure. I won't go through all the names here, but you can see there's a good, happy, smiling group here. This, I think, was taken at maybe the annual honors banquet that we hold in November. Next slide, please. This is just basically a pie diagram that shows our unrestricted funds. We get funds that are restricted, and these are the scholarships and things that, like the new turf field is part of those restricted types of funds that we would get in. This is unrestricted, where the board oversees the disbursement, and this is where that revenue comes from. You can see it from fundraisers, corporate membership, individual, and then we have some just donations that come in. Next slide, please. This is how we spend that money. Over 50% of that goes for enrichment activities, and so those would be things like paying for field trips, the buses for field trips, paying for entry fee to museums or whatever it would be. Then we have discretionary funds that we give out to each of the buildings, and the principal and the faculty and those schools oversee the expenditure of that. We do certain events, which is like the honors banquet that we have every November, the family series that we do. Different things like that are about 16% of our expenditures in 2015. And then we have a certain amount of costs, which are around 5 to 6%, that we have to pay fees to the state, we have to do mailings, we have to do certain things like that. That basically, if you look at most nonprofits, If they're only spending 5-6% of the total money they take in to operate the nonprofit, they're doing pretty good. And I think that we operate a pretty good group there. So next slide. The majority of our funds are restricted. These are primarily for scholarships, but as I mentioned, they also support other things like teacher tuition, student needs, alumni field. A new program, which I'll mention in a minute, is the new STEM and Arts Grants program that we are instituting this year. We've got some corporate donations we're going to be awarding. At this point, we've got about $10,000 we're going to be giving out this next year to valid or most worthy proposals. Next slide, please. These are the scholarship that we oversee. And you'll recognize a lot of those names, people in the community over years that have passed away or and their family wanted to honor them in the name of a scholarship in Rolla Public Schools. Next slide. Other types of restricted funds outside the scholarship, you can see those. For example, some of those go for teacher tuition. So if a teacher wants to take a continuing education class or whatever, this part of these funds would go to fund that. The STEM and Arts Grants, if we'll go to the next slide, that's a new program. We're getting funding from corporate partners. We've got our first corporate partner online, and basically what we've got, the process is teachers submit a one-page proposal. Those have been due into Dr. Zales' office here. And what we will have is a committee that's put together, including our corporate sponsors are going to sit on that committee. And basically the two major criteria that we're looking for is what is the expected outcome and benefit for the student and the activity, and then how did that outcome fit in with the Rolla Public School strategic plan and for student growth. And so we're looking at that as our basis for evaluation, and we'll make these awards annually, and the teacher, administrator, whatever it would be that gets the award, will have that year to expend those funds. Next slide, please. If we look at our operating funds, these are the unrestricted things that the board oversees. This is how we distribute out the discretionary funds to each of the buildings. You can see that the middle school, having the largest student population, has the largest amount of discretionary funds. Those are apportioned out by about basically a balance of the number of students in those particular schools. That's what we're looking for FY 2016. Those would be expended if a principal had a student that needed a coat or whatever. That's how those kinds of things are expended. They're at the discretion of the building principal and their staff. Next slide, please. We also, those are discretionary funds. These are the operating funds that go to each. I've got them backwards there. The others were for, can we go back a slide? I don't want to confuse the board. Real quickly, these are funds that are going for different kinds of processes that the building teachers would put forth to the principal to award. The next slide is at the discretion of the building principal to do certain things like building, that might have to get a coat or something for a student, or there's certain various needs. Next slide. The operating funds, when we talk about the family series, we're getting ready here in November. We'll have our honors banquet. Those students that have a high GPA, and we've had a really good problem in recent years. We're almost outgrowing the cafeteria with the number of students and family we've got, which is a great problem to have, and that's grown every year. Our newest program is down at the bottom, which is the Students with Pride. That's the newest. If you go to the next slide, Nancy, that's privileges, responsibilities, independence, decisions, and excellence, what that stands for. It's sort of the brainchild of Karen Daly, who's a member of our board. Basically, we recognize that we do a lot for the honors students. The honors banquet in November, we have a quarterly honors luncheon. We wanted to come up with a program that looked at those students that really were just making excellence in their advancement in behavior or grade. Maybe they're not on the honor roll, but we want to try to really encourage positive benefits. Maybe the student's not a 3.8 or a 3.5 student, but they're making great strides in the classroom. The teacher recognizes them. So the administrators and counselors select 50 students each quarter, and they get honored with a little lunch and stuff. Next slide. These are our operational costs. At 5 to 6% that of the total money we take in goes for this type of thing. The corporate registration with the state. The only benefit of being a board member, I guess, tangible, is you get a lunch when you meet once a month. We go and have our lunch, and so we have to pay for that out of that expenditure. So basically, you can see there what we're spending that money on. Next slide, please. This is our membership this year, 2015, or I should say last year. We're in the middle, and that's why I'm here, is we're in the middle of our membership drive. We're looking for people to join. And so last year we had 126 individual memberships. These could have been families as part of that, and 44 corporate memberships, which was the largest corporate memberships we've ever had. I think the newspaper did us a great service by having a long story about the loss of the license fee office, and some people stepped up and supported us. These are the membership levels. You know, for an individual membership, $50, couple, 75, family membership, 100. We do have a special rate for Rolla Public School employees, $25, and then our corporate and our champion membership levels at $250 and $500. Of course, if somebody wanted to come and give us a few $1,000, we're not going to turn that down. We'll come up with a new name just for them. So next slide. This is the last slide here. I appreciate your patience with me in allowing the Corps to make a presentation. This is how you contact us. For those of you out there watching this maybe on television or whatever, we have email, we have the phone, and then you can get our webpage. Jenny Rabineau does a great job managing our webpage there. It's basically hooked off the bottom of the Rolla Public Schools webpage. That should be it. I think I've got a slide asking if you got any questions. But at that point, I just wanted to come and give you an update on what Corps was up to.
Fantastic stuff. Very good. Any questions? Please pass our appreciation on to the board for all the
We'll
all
do
the
that.
work.
Bob, how long does your effort go for membership? You said you're
We
in the middle
typically,
of it?
well, we really are intense in our drive. We started out at the first football home game during the Pride Night and stuff, and we'll go for about the next month or so. We've got a mailing that's gone out to those that don't have email. We send out a kind of an email blast to those that do, trying to be good stewards. We don't want to incur that mailing cost if we don't have to. So there are people that don't have email that will send them out a note. But we try to get folks to kind
Or
of
they can
join
look
up
for you at a
next month.
football game if
Pardon me?
they can look for you at a football game.
Yeah, a lot of the board is at the football games. We don't have a table at every football game, although we occasionally operate at a concession stand or two. And we will be at a couple basketball games. We have set up our table at the basketball games and trying to make our presence known throughout the year. So,
Very good.
Right, thank you.
all right.
Anything else? Encourage you to become a member of CORE.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.